sharing. That could mean something.
It says we just got a notice that it's being sent to a third party. So a link, some link just got connected.
Okay. So I think that is, I just changed the start time on the, YouTube link. So we're all over it, Phil. I just had to change the start time on the YouTube link. So it was able to connect me. I just need to press the go live button. Correct. Now, what does, now why won't it? Says it's live. Can you guys hear
Rachel,
that?
no.
No? Okay.
Why do you have 8 devices talking simultaneously?
Well, I think the live, I need to see this link real quick. See if it'll actually, just waiting for DJ Case. Okay, well, I want to, maybe, no, it's not. Save. So I can see it on my end.
You're YouTube.
Yeah.
Bob, can you see it? Is it live on your side?
No.
No. Your audio isn't coming through, Bob, but the shake of your head is pretty clear.
Let me.
You have a both an admin view and a user view, Rachel, so you can tell the difference right now on YouTube.
Yes.
Yeah, nothing on the user view.
Yeah, put the head to the live. So it's working fine on, I just refresh it. Well, what if I send this to everyone and see? See if this does. I just sent a YouTube link to our Teams chat. See if that works.
That's a different one. Yeah.
I can see the live stream on my phone. And then, okay.
Bob, are you able to see the stream? We can't hear your audio still. Your audio is not happening, which is fine, but you can just nod or there you go. Bill's typing. That's probably good news. Yep. Confirmed, Rachel, that the old link didn't work, but the new one works.
Okay, cool. And this is why we hop on early.
That's it. Needed those 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay. Um, 12.
Bob's counting, I think. Number of seconds of delay here. It's doing a scientific experiment on stream delay here.
As long as he's counting on his fingers.
It's like, as long as it's less than 10, we're good.
I have like two other meetings in the background in the bullpen.
Perfect. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah. Like, everyone shut up. I'm trying to listen to hear Tovar.
Yeah, the open office format has its challenges for situations like this, for sure.
Like, usually I just get to listen to my thoughts during the day.
No, but those can be crazy making enough without anybody else helping.
Yes, exactly.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it appears to be working. At least it's a little laggy to watch it on my end, but that might be, you know,
Is it
that
just a
this might be.
delay? Is it just a delay, or is it actually like stuttering and giving you a hard time hearing audio?
Um, it like froze a couple times, it seemed like, and then kind of broke loose, but the
Hmm.
delay seems like it's, more than 10 seconds.
Okay.
Just talk slow, Tovar.
I am uniquely qualified for that job.
So you guys have a list of the participants?
I do.
Okay.
Is this the 10 or the
I
11?
sent out 2 email reminders to them. So hopefully we get a good turnout.
Okay. And I had 12 on that list, just what is in
Hmm.
box. So we'll see.
Yep. It'd be crowded if everybody shows, but usually somebody
Big
doesn't.
group. Be a big group.
Put it back on. Okay. We got the waiting room. Well, meet themselves. Huh. In the host tools, they have suspend participant activities. And then right above it, it's like remove participant. Huh. But one is
Those
in red
like
font.
degrees of censure.
Yeah.
Huh?
Okay. That's all good. Okay. And I am going for a record of how many screens I can have up. Okay. I don't know how folks use just one monitor throughout the day. It drives me up a
Right?
wall.
Well, I used to do that. Actually, I have a large monitor here,
Hmm.
and I had a laptop it was running off of, but I didn't use that screen. Like I just had that closed, and it was just I was ignoring it, and I just used the one screen. And then Rick got me set up with a stand so I can have the two side by side and extend the displays. Like, how did I function before
I,
this? I do not understand.
you figured out a way though.
Somehow. Bob, anything more we need to troubleshoot in terms of the feed here?
What's that?
Anything more we need to troubleshoot in terms of the feed before you jump off to just the YouTube side of things?
Yep.
Are we good? Is the feed coming through all right?
Yep.
Cool. Awesome.
Thank you for handling recruitment and the reminders, Bob. On top of all
Yeah,
the other
hopefully
stuff
it
we got
worked.
going on. That's
Yeah. Maybe we thanked him too soon, Rachel. I don't know. Wait till to see how it comes out.
people are busy. Trying to keep it up on their radar.
100%.
And it's in the middle of the workday too.
It is.
Like, I know what I'm doing.
Right.
Okay, I just sent all the participants a 10-minute warning email with the link.
Thanks.
I'm going to go hop off and hide in the call. If there's any problems or people aren't connecting,
Okay.
talk to me on Teams.
Alrighty. Sounds good.
Thanks,
Thank
Bob.
you for your help.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Hey Tovar, so just looking at the script, I know the recording, when you press the button, it makes the recording noise and everything.
It does. Yeah.
I'm gonna hit that right after you get done with your last sentence before you go into ground rules, if you're okay with that.
Yeah.
So,
That's
because
fine.
I've had the habit of just like talking over it and then no one hears you.
Yeah.
With how loud it is. So.
Yeah, that makes good sense. Yeah, I'm gonna scroll that back down. I don't want to watch that.
It's very distracting.
Yeah, we're gonna start sending gifts. Like, I was gonna start sending gifts. Talk about harassment. That's
Just
hilarious.
trying to talk to people today, man.
Seriously. You don't need challenges with participants when you got challenges on your own team.
Yeah, exactly.
That's funny.
Yeah, I wrote out my little spiel and then I like actually say, Tovar, like I'll hand it to you just so
Sure.
it's a little bit smoother.
Handoff is clear. Yep.
Yep. And then as we're wrapping up the last few questions, since I'll be following along, I'll just unmute myself and put my video on. And we may or may not have follow-up questions just from the peanut gallery on Teams. But if not, then we can let folks go.
Yeah, and I think most, ideally, we'll do the, as long as we use Teams lightly,
Yeah.
I think we can do them in real time, so we're doing them in context if there are particular things that I've missed that folks want to make sure we pursue, and not have to stack them up at the end there. Because depending on how things go, we might be low on time and it just be out of context can be a little confusing.
We do have a guest in the waiting room. I'm going to go ahead and write a message to everyone so they can have it when they roll into the waiting room.
Yep.
And just tell them that we'll let them in closer to the top of the hour.
How long is the delay? And I
I'll
just put
put,
that into chat about the same time. So he says 15 seconds.
yeah. Okay. I have on my phone, I'll have the volume down, but the still vibration, even when it's on silent. And it did that across the desk. I was like, not today.
Oh, yeah. For text or other notifications, it vibrates.
Yeah. It's like super over dramatic with how I was sitting. Like, nope. We do have one person on iPhone. That's always tricky, just depending on where they are, if they're in a corner somewhere with their phone like that.
Right.
I think we've had in other situations someone like cutting their grass while they're while they're on their phone. So we had to tell them to like stop doing that and come talk to
Oh,
us.
that's right. No, I saw that one. I actually, that was one of the ones you sent me. I was like, seriously, the guy's walking around his yard mowing or something.
They usually figure it out or they pull off to the side if they're driving and stuff, but it's just people are funny.
Maybe Bob's taking care of it, but Phil just asked for a link to the current script or final script inbox.
Like 3 people in the waiting room. It's always interesting who shows up early to virtual meetings. It's like, do you want to do the small talk thing or just like fumble your way into the meeting at the last minute? And
Right.
I guess depends on the crowd in the meeting. Mhm. Yeah, we still have 4 in the waiting room. Oh, 5.
We could have
6.
as many as a dozen.
Yeah. So I'm wondering with the iPhone folks, I am able to rename them if that is helpful, just their first name if just
That may be helpful for
okay.
sure. Once they introduce themselves, if we can. Not yet, Bob. We will. We're going to hit record. You'll hear this message in 15 seconds, Bob. We're going to record once I mention the recording at the top. Not the very beginning, but a minute or so in, a couple minutes in, we'll mention recording, and Rachel will start the recording.
Seven.
7 folks.
Yeah. 7 in the waiting room. There's like 2, 3 that are on iPhone.
Really? Well, that's kind of high.
Yeah. So I can get those renamed as we do those.
Appreciate that.
Well, there was 7, now 6. Is the top of the hour. If we want to let folks in and trickle in.
Sure, that's fine. I mean, if you want to just welcome folks, and we can let
Okay.
them in so they don't feel like they're being left in limbo after the top of the hour.
All right. Hi, everyone. Looks like we have a couple other folks who are trickling in, so we're just going to let them do that, and then we can get started. If that's okay with everyone? And for the folks who do not have their name identified in your Zoom little cube, if it's okay if I can rename you as we're doing introductions, that will help us as we're calling out names and with the conversation.
Hey, folks, welcome.
Tovar, I have 8 participants on the call. If we wanted to wait, or I can get us started and then let them just jump in.
Yeah, I mean, we'll be doing some introductory material here for a minute or two anyways, so I think that's just fine if you want to get going.
Okay. All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for spending some time with us this afternoon. I'm Rachel Manali. I'm a social scientist and project lead with a company called DJ Case and Associates. So you've been in contact with our other teammate, Bob Holzman, prior to today. My teammate, Tovar Cerulli, on this call will be introducing himself as well as the topic and facilitating the conversation today. So I'll be acting as technical support in the background. So if you guys have any technical issues on Zoom or any questions, feel free to use the chat feature in Zoom, and I can get those taken care of. But before I hand it over to Tovar, I just wanted to mention that I'll be on the Zoom call the entire time, but I will mute myself and have my video off during the duration. And then as we wrap up our conversations, I'll unmute myself and put the video back on with any potential questions that we have as we wrap up our conversations, and then we can kind of let you go for the day. And with that, I will continue to admit people into the room, Tovar, but I will hand it over to you to get us started.
Great. Thanks, Rachel. I see Stacy's connecting as we speak. Great. Thanks, Rachel. And thank you all for agreeing to share some of your thoughts and experiences related to the use of lead-free hunting ammunition. I'm Tovar, and like Rachel, I'm a team member at DJ Case. And for those of you who don't know DJ Case, We are a research and communications firm, and we focus on conservation and natural resources issues and work a lot with state and federal agencies. For this particular project, DJ Case was contracted by the North American Nod-Lead Partnership, which I'll just call the partnership for short throughout our conversation, to gather feedback on their workshops for agency staff. And you naturally were invited to participate in this group because you attended one of their workshops not too long ago. So our goal here today is to really get your thoughts on the workshop that you experienced, that you attended, on the partnership, any insights that you can offer from other related experiences you may have implementing programs or interacting with hunters about lead-free ammunition. So your input is super valuable to us and to the partnership, and will make our focus groups with hunters in the future, as well as the partnership's work, more effective. So we look forward to getting your input. Before we jump in, a few quick housekeeping items. You'll see from the invitation, the emails from our colleague Bob, and your calendar, that we do have 2 hours scheduled for this. We may not need that time, the full 2 hours, so we may be able to let you go early. Second, in a moment, Rachel's going to start a recording of this conversation so that we will have a really careful record, specific record, and go back and carefully consider all of the aspects of the conversation. No one except our research team here at DJ Case is going to have access to the recording, and no one's name is going to get attached to any report that we generate from this conversation. So please feel free to speak your mind. We're not going to be putting names to words. And then also there are a couple other members of our research team, including Bob Holzman, who invited you, who are also observing this through a video feed live, and we'll have the recording to refer to as well. So thank you, Rachel. Appreciate it. One other bit of housekeeping. We have a few very simple ground rules. We try to keep the rules to a minimum, but just to make sure our discussion is efficient and includes everyone's voices. I don't think anyone's driving, but we don't allow driving while we're doing focus groups, iPhone or otherwise. And please do, if you can, have your camera on. I know most of you do right now. If you can't have your camera on, unless there's a bandwidth issue, that's helpful just for interaction and being able to see and talk to each other. Third, if you're not speaking, as most of you right now are muted, that's great, just for background noise control. And then the fourth one is just, there may be differences of opinion, in the group, and just please be respectful of each other's opinions. And we want interaction, we want conversation about these things, absolutely, but being respectful is important. Everyone comfortable with those basic guidelines? Thumbs up, nods of the head. Cool. Excellent. Last thing I want to say before we dive in is just a few words about our roles. My role here is just to keep the conversation moving along, and mostly I'll be asking questions and listening. There might be times when I need to interrupt in the interest of time, or to get us back to a particular topic, or to make sure that someone else has a chance to speak. So if that happens and I have to interrupt or anything, I apologize in advance for that, and please don't take it personally. Looks like we lost one person, but hopefully they'll be able to. Oh, there we go. Coming back in, I think. All right. Welcome back. So if I do need to interrupt, my apologies. And your role obviously is to talk and listen to each other. And I invite you to really think of this as a living room conversation. Like, it's a little odd being in the Brady Bunch squares here, but to the extent possible, like, we're sitting around talking, and there can be, interaction. I encourage you to, jump in and talk with each other and interact and respond to each other's thoughts, just like you would if you were you're sitting in the living room. So to the extent possible, let's just make it a conversation, and I'll help move it along. Does anyone have any questions for me before we dive in? All right, hearing none. Let's begin with introductions. So as I said, I'm Tovar with DJ Case Associates. I'm based up in New England, and would love to go around. And I'll pass it to someone, and you can pass it to somebody else. And please just say your name, your organization, what agency or organization you're with, and then just a few words about why you attended the partnerships workshop on modern hunting ammunition. So I will start with Anna.
All right, good afternoon. I'm Anna Bassan. I'm with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and I'm located at the Walk-Hill River National Wildlife Refuge in Sussex, New Jersey. I attended the workshop one because we were selected to host a workshop, which was amazing. But I got into hunting later in life, and certainly my hunting mentors, they used non-lead ammunition, and I talked about that some when I got into hunting. And then thinking about sort of wildlife management, and all that's encapsulated with managing a wildlife refuge and hunt programs, and thinking that it seems like it's the direction that we'll ultimately be going, and how do we get there in a way that's more conducive to the hunters and doesn't add sort of more barriers to a community that's already seeing less participation. So, and I'm glad to be a part of this focus group today. Look forward to the discussion. Thanks. I'll pass it to Carl, because you have a turkey in the background, turkey feather, or turkey fan. So
yes,
Carl.
we have turkeys. We're both turkey hunters. My name's Carl Wagner. I serve as the chairman of the Maryland Wildlife Commission, and also am chairman of a nonprofit, the Maryland Sportsmen's Association. The reason I attended was we are facing legislation this year as well as last year, a total ban. Wanted to become educated and wanted to learn more about the process and how we can be better stewards of the environment and be better hunters. So that was my motivation. And I guess I will pass it on to, yeah, there you go. See,
Pansilla.
yeah, there you go. I can't read your name, but anyway.
All right, you guys can hear me?
Again.
Obviously. Chris Pansilla, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. I just attended the Walk-Hill workshop that Anna was at. Excellent workshop. What I liked most about it was that it was all based on education and not instantly banning something. So that was the reason, one of the biggest takeaways I had from it.
Excellent. Thank you, Chris. And thank you, Rachel, for renaming Chris, so I don't have to call him DOI 67234. Thank you. You want to pass it to someone, Chris?
Sure. Got to put on my glasses here so I can actually see. Holly.
Your mic's not picking you up, Holly. I'm not quite sure why, but if you can switch mics, that would be helpful. Or if you have earbuds that'll work, we could come back to you if you have anything that might work as a backup. No, nothing coming through for some reason. Next to your audio selection, maybe it'll give you another option next to the mute.
You guys hear me now?
Yes, there you go. You got it.
The settings must have changed on me every now and then.
It happens every day to me.
All right, sorry about that. My name's Holly Morris, and I'm the Fur Bear and Small Game Project Leader for the West Virginia Division of Natural Resources. I attended a workshop in August up at Canaan Valley. and just attended. I'm an outdoorsman myself, so interested in, non-toxic options from a personal standpoint, but also, managing wildlife populations in West Virginia, hunting and trapping. Those are my constituents. So just looking to see what's on the forefront, how we can adapt to those things and make appropriate changes.
Wonderful. You want to pass it to someone, Holly?
Sure. Pass it to Steve.
I knew you were going to do that, Holly. Steve Rao. I am with the West Virginia Division of Natural Resources. I'm the Assistant Chief in charge of the Game Management Unit of the Wildlife Resources section, and I also attended the workshop in last summer, Canaan Valley. Wanted to learn more information. Had cursory information, but was definitely enjoyed the workshop and what was presented, and I agree with Chris on the providing options and not just the flat out prohibition of the use of lead. That in a state like West Virginia would be very important for providing those. Take a look at these options type of thing. So I will pass it to Alan.
All right, I'm Alan Shipley with West Virginia DNR. I attended the same meeting as the other two people from West Virginia. I pretty much attended the meeting to make sure that lead-free didn't get pushed on everyone here in the state too quickly before the industry was ready and before everyone else was ready and before the standards of what people were wanting to have for performance on wildlife on terminal ballistics and things like that match up with what's required for what needs done.
Excellent. I'll pass it to someone, Alan.
Let's see. About Clarissa.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Clarissa.
Yeah, Clarissa Harris with Maryland DNR Wildlife and Heritage Service. I'm about less than an hour from Canaan, so I'm in the almost West Virginia part of Maryland. But attended the workshop down at Patuxent around Baltimore this summer, and because we, as part of our job, deal a lot with dispatching wildlife, injured deer, bears, raccoons, all that kind of stuff. So we have our own firearms and ammunition information or stuff that we got to deal with. And I order that stuff for our staff. I've been a hunter ed instructor for over 25 years. And yeah, I just wanted more information for myself to become educated, to make good decisions. And like everybody else, didn't like the idea of hearing that it might be pushed down our throats here in Maryland, but we're hoping that we can bypass that and get buy-in. But that's why I'm here today. So thanks for inviting me. And I don't know who hasn't gone yet.
We got a hand raised there.
I'm not good with the Zoom, so somebody's going to have to just take it.
All right, Stacy, go for it.
I can jump in. Yeah, thanks, Clarissa. Stacy Lowe. I work for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. I'm a refuge supervisor based in our regional office in Hadley, Massachusetts. I think I've attended, I lost count, but it might be 16 workshops. I've definitely attended a lot of them, almost all of them that have happened in our region over the last 3 years. Very engaged in this topic, both personally and professionally, hunter and angler as well. A lot of personal interest in learning about the topic, but also serve as the lead for our internal Fish and Wildlife Service working group, which is looking for ways to help promote lead-free ammunition and fishing tackle on our national wildlife refuges. And we helped bring one of the earlier workshops to the region, and have been very pleased with the outcome. And really love the messaging and just the opportunity for the conversation that the workshop atmosphere helps create. So we've been really excited to continue to engage in that effort, and yeah, thrilled to participate in this focus group. So
Thank you, Stacey. All right, so I think we've got Ron. You want to go? You're on mute there. Button's hiding from you somewhere. Your face is a little funny.
All right, there you go.
There you go.
All right, I apologize. I'm
worries.
actually in a very distracted place. I'm in Las Vegas here at the SHOT Show, tucked in a corner with a lot of people around me. So thank you for bearing with me. So my name's Ron Fournier. I'm the recreational safety supervisor in the state of Maine, which is a fancy word for the hunter education director. I oversee our hunter education program and trapping as well. And I lead the team of coordinators and volunteers across the state. I attended 2 years ago at the Rachel Carson location on the coast of Maine as a participant, and I realized the value of bringing that to my entire team. So we actually hosted one the following year, last year in Augusta. Very well attended. We filled up literally instantly with a lot of our more dedicated instructors. And our approach is similar to other states, is we're trying to help educate new hunters and shooters on the front end of things, so that we can start having these conversations and start making progress, moving in the right direction. Because I think a lot of other states share that there's pushback and there's reluctance of, government being heavy-handed or, being mandated. So I think more buy-in is really important. Lifelong hunter, my family hunts, very connected to the outdoors. So something I'm really passionate about. And thanks for dealing with my my little bit of a chaotic background here.
No, the background noise is not audible, so you're good. Thank you for trying to make time amidst the busy show. Appreciate it. Josh, welcome. Glad to have you with us. We were just finishing up a round of introductions. I'm Tovar with DJ Case and Associates, helping move our conversation along today. And as you probably could tell from the couple folks you just heard speak, we're just name what organization or agency you're with, and maybe a couple words about why you attended a workshop, given by the Non-Lead Partnership on monitoring hunting ammunition. So
yeah, sure.
The floor is yours.
Sure. Can you hear me all right?
Yep. Sounds good.
Okay. Yeah, sorry checking in a little bit late, but
No worries.
yeah, Josh Homiak, I'm the game bird section leader for the Maryland Department of Natural Resources. Attended a workshop last fall. Pretty interesting, and just seeing some legislation pop up around the country, kind of directing the direction of ammunition, I guess, and so kind of interested in that. Lifelong hunter, hunting family, all that sort of stuff too. From reloading rifle ammunition, shotgun stuff, that whole end of things too. So pretty familiar with that stuff, but just sort of interested in checking in with the group and seeing what everyone has to say. So nice to meet everyone. And I may have to bounce out early, so I've got a couple different things going on. So apologize for that if I disappear.
All right, good to have you with us. Thanks, Josh. Excellent. Thanks for the introductions, everyone. So I've got a list of questions that I want to work our way through. And the first one is pretty simple. It's just, what do you recall most about the workshop? What made an impression on you that seemed particularly valuable, relevant? What pops to mind? So for some of you, it was a while back. Some of you, it was more recent. But Ron?
Yeah, my first takeaway was, I deal with a pretty an older population of volunteers, and I was actually shocked at the buy-in from some of the folks. A lot of eyes were opened. I expected there was going to be a lot of resentment or, yeah, well, and the conversations afterwards and at lunch were amazing, and I knew that they were genuine in bringing that back into the classroom to have these conversations. That was my first takeaway, was the early acceptance from some of those folks. And some of these instructors have been teaching for 20, 30, 40 years in a group that I would classify as very hard to change and influence. A lot of them stuck in their ways. That was my first takeaway. And just the delivery was really engaging. It was light, it wasn't heavy-handed, and the hands-on portion or the range portion was a highlight for a lot of folks, getting them out of their chairs and whatnot.
Thanks, Ron. I know a lot of you probably attended, and probably Ron, you originally did too, a workshop that was for agency folks. Of course, Ron's speaking about one that was for instructors, for volunteers, it was really great to hear that experience. Other folks, and what you recall, what made an impression?
For me, it was the outdoor actual shooting that, people can stand up there and show you graphs and charts and ballistics and all that kind of stuff. But when they took us outside and actually shot the ammo and, got it in that gel and, put it in the water, that was like, wow, okay, this is what they're talking about. To me, that helped a lot.
I would agree with Clarissa. I think that was the demonstration outside into the water tanks and the number of pieces and the fracturing of the lead versus the copper, I think, was dramatic. I think the other dramatic one along the same lines was the pictures of I believe it was either a prairie dog or a fox that they had shot, and there was like 47 or 37 pieces. It was an X-ray. That was a real vivid picture of not only of what they're talking about when they're talking about a fragmentation of a lead bullet versus you think about big chunks of lead, but it was just the amount of pieces in one small body was very, very pertinent.
For me, it was the personal nature of Chris and Leland and their ability to tell their story and tell the science, and also talk about the ballistics in a way that really resonated with anyone in the audience, myself included. I felt like they were really approachable. They had the science, but they could tell the story in a way that both at the agency day they could get really technical, and on the public day they could keep it light, keep folks engaged. So I felt the quality of the instruction, I was just really blown away with, and the content.
I just want to say to end this comment, their passion and their like both hunters. That was something that made me feel like delivery was if it was a biologist or somebody that's looking at statistics presenting this that doesn't have any real life background, it might come across a little bit differently. But talking about their background, their hunting activities, and why they made their choices to do what they're doing now, I think was really valuable.
Thanks, Ron. Others, what struck you? What do you recall?
I'll add one other thing to that. I also was kind of interested that the bigger take-home point was getting lead out of the environment. So there's some different, rifle cartridges, other weapons that, maybe lead is not or a non-toxic shot isn't available for that caliber. We explored different options for folks that maybe couldn't afford that, or like I said, for the weapon they choose, that there's not an option available. If it's small game they're pursuing, something as easy as taking, that carcass out of the woods and disposing of it properly was just as good as switching to a non-toxic ammunition.
Yeah, I can add too. Of course, the ballistic demonstration was excellent way to show. Also, too, I thought painting the picture of hunters as conservationists was really important. All too often it's the environmentalist, instead of the conservationist, that seems to win the environmental debate out there, or is, listened to greater. So I thought their take on hunting as conservation was excellent. So
I can jump into. I would second the field demonstration component. Again, I mentioned I think I've attended close to 16 of these and it never gets old. I love looking in the barrel every single time. Just seeing the look on people's faces when they realize, and can kind of watch it in real time and watch it happen. It just becomes so real. I think that was just incredibly impactful for so many folks.
Yeah, I would add, like everybody's saying, that the field, the field shooting, and with them emphasizing that they purchased the non-lead locally, all air quote. So people in that area will know, I can get this, and it really isn't that much of a cost difference potentially, and also providing other opportunities, or methods of alleviating taking taking gut piles out of the woods, or as Holly said, squirrels, or there's other things that can be done, and everything together will be a benefit. And they pointed those things out.
Second question I have in mind, has the workshop that you attended, or in some cases the 16 workshops that you attended, has a workshop experience helped you do your job or play your role, whether it's your professional day job or your role as a chair of an organization or a committee? Has it helped you do your work better in any ways? And if so, how?
Wouldn't In my case, I wouldn't say that it has improved making it better, but it gave me ideas of how we can proceed with providing information to the public. You know, it it it, it made me think about that. I need to work on getting that out, um, more out to the public.
And Steve, your comment is a good way to reframe this. Let's add a layer to this. If you don't have a concrete way that it's already helped you, how do you imagine it might help you in the future? Ways you might be able to use what you learned from the workshop. So Steve gave a good example of that.
Yeah. The you know the stuff that they have available, being able to implement, um, I would like to get it in our something in our hunting regulations of consider doing this, and just put it out there.
I would say here at the refuge, it's helped us, helped me communicate with the hunters when there's questions about lead-free alternatives. And then we were also chosen as a pilot station for an incentive program related to lead-free alternatives. And I felt, because I'd been through the workshop, much more knowledgeable. I also had like websites to send people to, or just, talking points, as well as we were able to keep the ballistic gels, so like hands-on showing folks. So I felt like the outreach, the messaging, I was more informed to then share. And I also think that it has also helped, the people that I manage here and that I work with, in talking to our hunting public, because especially for the agency day, it was, you could just tell by the body language. There was a lot of resistance to the topic, but I felt like by the end of the workshop, hearts and minds are changing. And then that's something that we're taking to both our hunting public, but also to the hunt groups that we might be a part of here. So I really think just the way that it was rolled out and the information that was shared was information that you can then take and share with others.
I would add, from my perspective, having these and participating in them across multiple states, it really gives us a common set of talking points when we're having conversations across agencies. We're kind of talking from the same set of facts. We heard the same presentation, and it really helps bring us to the table just more efficiently and effectively in terms of having conversations around this.
I think the one thing that I took out of it is I feel much better informed and I understand. I think the biggest problem is trying to relate the amount of information and the statistics and the slides and the demonstrations to somebody who hasn't seen the presentation, who you may only get 5 or 10 minutes to convince them or show them something different. So I think it would be great, almost like train the trainer type of process where they can sort of condense it down into a version that we can communicate quicker, because you always don't have a whole day to try to go over all the facts and figures, and a lot of people won't take the time to look it up. And I think anybody that goes through that presentation could not help it but be convinced that it's a good thing that they're doing. But it's just hard to communicate what they've told us if you have a short window to do it in.
Yeah, I agree with Carl. I've been teaching hunter safety, and yeah, I mean, the non-toxic shot is definitely a thing we talk about for waterfowl hunting. But now, because of this workshop, I'm definitely going to try to sneak in more non-lead information with deer hunting, because most of the people in the room are going to want to be deer hunters, or small game. So definitely looking for more resources to push or to have available to hand out or whatever for my locals. Taking hunter safety is a big thing. And with our Becoming Outdoors Woman program and our R3 new hunters, it'll be probably an easier buy-in, but something, tangible that we can give out. I'll be working on that.
Any other thoughts on how it's either helped you already or you think the experience and the information from the workshop might help you in the future in the work you do?
I think it's helped me, coming from the federal government, where we sometimes just come down with a decision that education beforehand is a very good way to go. Get the buy-in from the public and make a transition, which probably eventually will happen, with not allowing lead for big game or small game too as well. But just the education part is so essential.
Say it's attending the workshop helped push me towards converting my family's ammunition that we're using for deer hunting, mostly from lead to lead-free ammunition, which is partially just to get the lead out of our system, but also to see in reality how this stuff works on game and how it shoots out of our guns. So that's been interesting. But what I've found is that the availability of non-lead ammo is slightly more problematic maybe than how it's presented in this presentation, or in the workshops, which are great in every other way. But the fact of the matter is the choices are just not there the way they are for lead ammunition. And particularly, for more oddball cartridges and things like that. So, I just, as I've been working on that, on our personal firearms over the past year, I have no issues. The stuff is shot great most of the time. Accuracy has been on par or better, than stuff I had been using. But sometimes bullet weights, particularly for smaller calibers like a 243, you're dropping down to 80 grain bullets instead of 100 grain bullets, and like I said, more oddball stuff is definitely harder to find. So from the manufacturer's standpoint, I think, getting more buy-in and endorsement, having those guys produce stuff, it's a chicken or the egg kind of thing, but, that would definitely help. But I've found the same thing with my peers and hunting buddies and stuff like that. When you talk about it, nobody really has a whole lot of angst about it. If it's available, they're going to use it, I think, so my 2 cents there.
Thanks, Josh. Anything that didn't work so well about the workshop? Anywhere you felt it fell short or there was something missing?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Two things. Some of the studies that they had presented were a bit older, and some of them were done in other countries. And then as far as an East Coast person, a lot of them were Western studies. And one of the big things I heard from one of the attendees at one of the seminars I went to was, again, everybody thinks their state's different, but they said, well, it's totally different in Western Maryland, where we're not really leaving carcasses out for the birds of prey. They sit in the woods, and and they get eaten that night by a fox or a coyote or whatever else is out there. And I think the one issue I would have is, I think that they need to maybe look at some information or be more localized in their presentation. I mean, I get it, the California condors and a lot of the golden eagles and all the eagles out in the western part of the country, in the big plains areas. But I think it is a bit different in the East Coast, where we're hunting in thick woods, and we don't really have a whole lot we have a lot of birds of prey, but I don't know how many of them ever come under the canopy to feed on a carcass. So I think that could be addressed a little bit better.
Thanks, Carl. Other gaps, other things that didn't work well, or things fell short that you noticed or recall?
I think one other thing I'd like to see is more shotgun ballistics and them talking about different shot shells, like steel versus lead and different things like that. I don't think that was covered very well in the presentation. Like, it was mainly focused on big game and not so much into like upland species or anything like that.
Don?
I was going to add, one thing I think we just had continually struggled with was identifying, sort of the perfect time to have it. And I know we have had workshops at different months, but it seems like always difficult to attract the public audience. And I don't know if it's the commitment of time, like, being 4 to 5 hours, or, distance from people that are interested in attending. Or if it's the month of the year that we're offering it. And something I've talked with the partnership about extensively in terms of ideal timing. Do you do it when people are gearing up for hunting season and July, August, like we have been doing, or is it better to do it after the hunting season so people have much more time to absorb and then prepare, ahead of that? And yeah, just something I think that we need to continually be mindful of if we want to, reach more folks. So.
I'll add on to the point about just information on different firearms. So in New Jersey, you can't use a rifle for any type of hunting. And so the first year that we did the workshop, it did kind of fall a little flat, and especially in the range demo. But the next year that we did it, they brought shotguns and they localized it. But I think having that knowledge ahead of time of, either if it's the state or East Coast, West Coast, kind of trying to fit the community of hunters that they're looking at. I think the other thing that was challenging, and this speaks a little bit to what Stacy's talking about, trying to get the participants in the door. Before I'd gone through a workshop myself, I wasn't as clear of what the workshop was actually about. And so it was like, I know it's more than waterfowl, but I'm not really sure what. And so I didn't know, if there is a way to, like, I think someone had mentioned, like, train those trainers, kind of get those of us that are trying to get the public in or get more agency folks involved trained up. So we're really knowledgeable of how do we structure that outreach, that message to reach those people, to get them in the door and to have them, participate in the workshop.
Related to gaps, is there anything that you would like to learn about modern / lead-free hunting ammunition that wasn't covered in the workshop? Are there particular things that you're curious about that you feel be relevant, at least where you are, that you didn't learn or see much about there? Another question of kinds of firearms, like shot, more coverage, like you were speaking about, Alan and Anna, both just about not just being all about rifles, having more to do with shotguns, whether it's slugs or pellets. Anything else? Any other things that you'd like to learn more about?
I went to the first workshop I did. They did high-powered rifle and shotgun side by side. The second one that we hosted was just rifle, and I expected that it was going to be consistent with shotgun slugs, because I do share the same sentiment that some of our coastal zones are shotgun only, and to make it relative to all participants, I think by standardizing the delivery, especially the hands-on, the range portion of showcasing, a shotgun and a high-powered rifle, as well as maybe even small caliber, because we do have a lot of small caliber folks. And there's some challenges with the smaller caliber stuff.
I guess I would have liked to have seen some more information on how to overcome maybe some of the shortfalls for non-lead ammunition. Personally, I've tried a few different rifles, switching to the different types of ammo, and some things just didn't work for me. And maybe it's bullet weight or different ballistic information or different, tips on the ammo, just more details on how to get, if you've got people from the public you're trying to sell this to, how you can help them find a load that will work in the rifles they already own, and have something that's going to shoot better than lead for sure, especially whether it's on paper or, downrange, that it's going to mortally wound an animal. It's going to be a recovered animal. It's not going to be just wounded, something that they're going to want to choose and they'll pay the extra price for. So
it sounds like when you say shortfalls, you're talking about performance shortfalls.
yes.
Yeah.
I would offer, one thing we've talked about is the continued engagement post-workshop. A lot of people, hear the information and it lands really well, and maybe they go to, try out a couple of different brands and maybe aren't successful right out of the door and might need a little more coaching or mentoring. And that's something that we've mentioned and talked about. So.
I'd like to shift gears a little bit, and you've already helped some of you in your comments about localizing things have helped move us in this direction already. I want to think about how things stand and what some of the challenges and opportunities might be in your particular state or region. So first question is just, how would you characterize the progress so far in getting hunters to consider lead-free options locally, like whether that's your state or your region, whichever way is helpful for you to think about it. It could be, in Maryland or in the Mid-Atlantic or wherever you are, in Maine or in New England. What's the progress look like so far? As far as you know, I mean, it's hard to maybe have data on it, but just your impressions, what you've heard from folks.
I think some of the biggest hurdles that we've looked at is the cost of the ammunition, because a lot of the people that hunt around my area are buying the cheapest box of rifle ammo that they can find at Walmart, and that's $10 to $15 cheaper than the next cheapest thing of lead-free ammunition, like rifle wise. Shotgun wise, like I've had some people go out and try lead-free going with steel, and they have absolutely hated the performance of it on like upland species and things like that. And then the next best component is $50 to $60 a box of shells for bismuth, and people aren't going to pay that. So I think cost is the biggest hurdle for like an equivalent effective round that people are facing around here.
I would say in Maine, I feel like we're gaining more acceptance, but there's no data that it's strictly anecdotal. A lot of folks have these conversations. We have it in our law book now as consider non-lead ammunition. We've had a few social media posts and whatnot, but I don't think we have any data at all to fall back on to say if we're actually starting to move the needle. And I would also, you mentioned Walmart. A lot of folks, the general public, for the most part, are going to big box stores or whatever is available to them close by. And I think the key to success is having more of these retailers in gun shops, having more stuff readily available. But they also, here I am at the SHOT Show with 60,000 people, and there's very little discussion from what I've seen of non-lead ammo. They're the folks that we need to be the ambassadors to put it in their shops, put it in their stores, and make it available to folks. Because from the agency standpoint, we're at a little bit of a deficit. So I'll kind of leave it there.
Ron, any other thoughts on just progress so far? Conversations, like Ron's mentioning, or locally in your state or your region?
I think to the last point is I think the manufacturers, unlike waterfowl hunting where it was 100% and everything converted over, we're still talking about what 80% of the ammunition sold is for shooters, not hunters. And I think that's probably the biggest thing we face now in the hunting side. I wish we would have all started on this 5 years ago, implementing some voluntary programs, because I think that the push is going to start happening, especially with the federal agencies switching over. In Maryland, we're going to face some more trials this year with a total ban over a period of time. And I think part of what it just was our negligence, I think, not to move forward earlier and try to educate and do a voluntary program. So I think the manufacturers have to do a better job of pushing it. For the hunting side, I know it's not a majority of their business, but also the labeling and packaging is terrible. It's very hard to tell if it's a copper tip or whether it's a copper bullet. And I think so. I think, if you got that SHOT Show, you should tell them all they need to start labeling their stuff in a common way and make it more readily noticeable to the average hunter.
I was going to say the exact same thing of, recreational shooting is 80% of the WISFR dollars coming in. I will call it WISFR for the rest of my career. And it's a supply and demand thing. And when 80% of it is just being shot at a shooting range for target practice and recreation, there's that trying to get over that hurdle of providing more opportunities, availability, as I should say, for even the most common rounds that are used for especially in the east for big game hunting, whitetail deer. So yeah, agree.
Yeah, I would add on, it's here locally in New Jersey, price, availability, and then just knowledge that we're talking about species other than waterfowl. So some of the hunters that didn't go to the workshop following up, just chatting in the field, oh, that's waterfowl. Like, well, actually, it's much broader, right? So bringing people into the fold, into the conversation.
So go ahead, Chris. Go ahead, jump in.
Anna, what was that incentive that your refuge was giving out there? Was it monetary? I can't remember now, but I think whatever it was, the federal government, before they come in and ban something, maybe they could come in and give some sort of, here's $5 off. I don't know, type of thing. Maybe that would be a way of pushing people in that direction. I don't know. But
yeah, Chris, it's a $50 rebate if someone sends in a picture of their refuge permit and the receipt from their non-lead ammunition. But I do think we've had some questions about, just the labeling on the box about, is it truly non-lead? And out of the 220 hunters on the refuge, I think we're up to 9 that have submitted for that rebate. So we have work to do, but 10 was my goal. So I've almost reached my goal.
So I'm wondering if you have other thoughts about the progress so far in your region, please continue to share those as well. But a lot of these barriers, which are very real, industry focus, the main market being for shooters, availability, price, big box store availability in particular, et cetera, all really relevant. And a lot of them, not maybe all, but most of those pretty widespread, right? Those are not localized for the most part. Is there anything particular in your state or region that seems like a barrier that would deter hunters from considering using lead-free ammunition?
I'd say for me, very rural state accessibility. If you're not within striking distance of a box store, you're talking, a lot of smaller shops that may not be carrying, alternatives or carrying just, the most popular cartridges.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would add, in several of the states in our region, there's a prohibition on buying ammunition online, which is one of the easiest sources to find lead-free options, especially if you want to, be consistent and use the same brand and everything. I think that's a huge challenge for us.
I would say West Virginia would be the price and accessibility. You got you might have a desire. I will try that, but and then you can't find it, and then it's, well, shoot, I can just go right down the store or right down the road and at a mom and pop store or a Walmart or anything, and I'll just get me a box of this will work. I've shot it, so I think that's which is widespread. So it
So cost, accessibility, and it says
Oh,
also sounds like, sorry. So it sounds like cost, accessibility, and also familiarity. Like you already know this works and it's readily available locally and affordable.
Yeah.
I think another
Go
issue.
ahead, Ron. Oh, sorry, Ron, are you trying to get in
I
there?
was gonna say, I think yeah, I was gonna say that the cost is definitely a challenge, but also, if folks walk away with a box of ammo, they, take it to the range, they make sure that they're on target and they hunt with it. Next thing you know, they go back to find that same ammo and they can't find it. So to actually, I don't want to say bulk up, but to have it to buy several boxes, that price point is really high. You're talking 60, $70 a box. You're less likely to buy multiples, at least a lot of our demographic. And then you got to start over again. If you buy another type of bullet that's available somewhere, you got to go back to the range, run through more ammo and whatnot. So it's a little bit of again, it comes back to that price. I wanted to just mention something before I lose my thought, and I don't want to go backwards, but as far as gaps, I don't think we should ignore trappers. We have in Maine, we're seeing a large spike in trapping, our trapping education courses, and trappers, if they're doing land trapping, a deer hunter might go out and shoot one or two deer, or depending how many your state allows. So you've got a gut pile and probably some contaminated meat with lead if they haven't switched over. But trappers kind of fly under the radar, but they're actually, a lot of them are harvesting, dozens or hundreds of carcasses, and many of them are not edible. So I think more education to educate trappers that non-lead ammunition, especially, a small caliber 22 or 32 caliber or something like that, because they have a much bigger impact on the landscape than I think we imagine they do. And we're also dealing with a little bit of a resistant demographic, at least in Maine. But I think, we've already started to have those conversations in our trapper education classes. Is non-lead ammo is a great choice. It's short range. You're shooting and dispatching an animal several feet away. Performance is not really an issue. But you're going to have these carcasses. Some of them they're utilizing for coyote or predator baits, which now we're taking that potential lead contamination and putting it right into the ecosystem directly. So anyways, I just wanted to kind of get that on record before I lost my thought.
Appreciate that, Ron. And that's anyone, please feel free to jump back like Ron just did. If you think of something that you want to address on a previous question, go ahead, Alan.
When we were doing our working group or whatever, they currently didn't make a single round or a single thing of 22 long rifle in non-toxic. So that was one of the big hurdles that we were looking at. Like, they may have produced some in the past and they may produce some now, but currently when we were doing that, they didn't produce any non-toxic options for 22 long rifle. And like he'd mentioned before too, the demographic resistance to it is going to be another big factor. Like, I know a lot of people won't use non-lead just for the pure issue of politics. They'll be like, they're attacking hunting and we ain't going to do it because this ain't right. It's un-American. And it's not. You can show them all that you would want to, scientific wise and data wise and everything, and they just won't do it unless they're absolutely forced to do it. And then if they're forced to do it, it's not going to be like the outcome that we're pushing for. Like, I think the education factor needs to be pushed a really, really long time before like it's actually forced. So it's a lot better of like an acceptance to it.
And I'd add to Ron's on his comment about ammunition. The flip side of that is you go and you pick up a box of non-lead and then it doesn't work very well in your particular firearm. And now they've got this box of $60-$70 shells that they can't use, and I'm not going to go look for another one, brand or bullet or whatever, because it may not work. So it I think both things probably very easily could come into play.
I'm going to flip the question on its head for a second. Are there specific opportunities that you see in your state or in your region? Like, Ron mentioned trapping community, for example, either communities or situations or ideas or events, anything that is local to your state or region. You think, this is a good opportunity to get hunters to consider, or trappers in Ron's example, hunters to consider lead-free ammunition. Any particular opportunities or openings that you've seen or that you think might be on the horizon?
I think, in West Virginia, some opportunities would be there are some sport shows, outdoor wildlife sport shows, and also we host a National Hunting and Fishing Day event, and those may be some opportunities to get more word out to people. And like I had mentioned, I would like to get something into our hunting regulations brochure on considerations of doing this or this or this, and this is why. Something short and sweet. Just get people thinking.
A couple ideas in New Jersey, similar to Ron, we have an annual trappers convention. So talking to the state this past year that maybe we could do something in future years there. We also have a duck hunters workshop on the refuge that's really successful. We have to cap registration and we work with the state on it. And after the non-lead workshop, it was like, I don't know how this could work on a refuge just because of the idea that I had, I don't know how to implement it or where it could work, would be, folks bring in ammo, or maybe there is some non-lead ammo there and you've got like some experts, and it's kind of like test your equipment with folks, talk it through, have that conversation. Because what we keep hearing in this waterfowl workshop is that hunters really miss that opportunity to have hands-on. We don't have check stations anymore. It's all online. And so that opportunity to come together and have that conversation is what has made this waterfowl hunting workshop so popular. But thinking about, would there be a space that's appropriate for folks to bring in their equipment from home, or maybe they could use something that someone has there and just have that information, that back and forth, so you're more confident with your equipment, with your ammo. Because I certainly hear what folks have mentioned here about, like, you buy something, it's a little more expensive, it doesn't work, how likely are you to go back and try it again? So if someone in some state is doing that, let us know in New Jersey, because that's an idea we'd like to try.
I know in New Jersey we have a Wildlife Digest with all the hunting regulations in it that's published every year. And maybe in there, an ad with a QR code or something along those lines with a short presentation on why it's so important, little ballistic demonstration. I mean, you could put a lot in there for, quick bang for your buck that might get out to a lot of people.
Stacy, it looked like you popped off mute there for a second.
Yeah, trying not to talk over anybody.
It's tough on Zoom. It's tough.
Yeah, it happens. One thing I was thinking a lot about, and I mentioned earlier in one of my comments, sort of the timing and when this lands and, how that impacts, participation. And one thing I wondered about was, how might we incorporate sort of a hybrid approach where maybe in the winter months, folks could engage in like an online, sort of version, sort of a primer, if you will, pun intended, and then show up in person for the barrel demonstration. And again, that would mean less time in person, and it's sort of not less committal, right? When you're signing on for a webinar, if it's not something you want to continue to listen to, it's very easy to to bail. And I think it gives people that out and maybe the little bit of comfort. It is, I think, often hard for folks to look at the flyer and just, think like, oh yeah, this is for me. This is something I should attend. I'm going to get something out of this. I think most of our advertisement is best when it's word of mouth and, from another hunter that they trust. So I think I've given a lot of thought to, I've often seen, like turkey hunting techniques and other things like that are offered online in the winter when people have a little more downtime, and thought that might be something to consider. So.
Thanks, Stacy. All right, different question here. And a couple of you touched on this when you introduced yourselves, and I'd like to circle back to it. During the workshop or in other interactions that you've had with folks from the partnership, what's your experience been of them as individuals, as the organization, the partnership? What's your impression been? Some people talked about, them being very approachable or, that kind of thing. What's your experience been? What's your impression been of the partnership?
I know you're recording this, so no, I'm just kidding. It's for me, it's always been just absolutely incredible. Across the board, I've interacted with both Chris, Leland, Adam, and Neil Thagard, all in different regards, from the planning component to the execution of the actual events, and always fantastic. They go above and beyond. They will do whatever it takes when the pump fails at the last second. They always figure everything out, and I love how receptive they've been to feedback. We've debriefed after every single workshop that we've hosted and talked about what landed well, what didn't, what could we tweak, where did it look like we were losing people. And I love how adaptive they are with their approach in terms of, hearing feedback from us. And yeah, like I said, they're just incredible folks, very knowledgeable, very easy to work with. And yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Great.
I would share a lot of that same sentiment. Just very approachable, engaging, adaptable, and super self-sufficient. Like very little needs, from us. We had a complex site we were trying to utilize, and have a water source and whatnot, and they're like, "Nope, we got this. We've got this dialed in." And you could tell that they were just good problem solvers and whatnot. So good delivery.
Ron, Clarissa, or Holly, I just want to make sure you have a chance to get in if you want. Any impressions just of the partnership?
Well, I have to admit that when I was given the opportunity to go, I'm like, I don't know. I'm not sure if I want to go and listen to somebody tell me all this stuff and just push it down my throat. And I have to say I was totally wrong. And I was very much pleased with these guys. They were great. They talked to us. They explained things to us, and but I know that is out there with the general public. It is about change. When you ask somebody when you approach somebody or put something out there, like, we got to change the way we're doing things, people just automatically tense up. And it's like, I don't want to change the way I do things. So, but yeah, it was, they are awesome. Yeah. And I would go to any workshop they ever present in the future for sure. And I would highly recommend it to all my coworkers and the folks that I work with for sure.
And Chris, I love that you had an expectation that was different than what your experience was. And I'd be curious, anyone else who's making cameo, if you had expectations or what you thought about them before you went to the workshop and how that was different, if it was different when you went there. Curious. Go ahead, Holly.
Yeah, I also, like Clarissa, was under the impression that we were going to be told this is the new norm, this is how to encourage people to do it. And really that wasn't the case. Those fellows that we worked with were we're very understanding of both sides, you know, that we're working on the common goals, but we've also got a lot of different hurdles. And like something I mentioned earlier, you know, the take home point is to get lead out of the environment. So, you know, for folks that can't switch for whatever reason or can't afford it, or the option's not there, you know, just little things will add up over time and help things move forward to the same goal as everyone else.
Yeah, I would add the one that we went to was, was the one that we hosted was the agency workshop. I didn't make it to the public workshop, but it wasn't a us and them type of such. It was us. They're, we're all looking at this the same way, and and presenting the facts, what's available, and here are some solutions to consider. And that was the big thing that I thought was, just consider these things, these options.
Stacy, I want to circle back to something you said, just as a jumping off point. You said that they've been very open to feedback throughout, the process and been very adaptive. What sort of feedback would any of you give to them just on possible improvements to what they're doing or how they're going about it? Not just the workshop itself, but like as an organization or as a partnership. Is there anything you think it would work better, at least here in my state or in my region, if this was different?
I'll say that I think that they did a great job. I think I attended both, one for the agencies and one for the masses or whatever, the stakeholders. I think that maybe on the agency side I think we all need a little more information or at least guidance on how to communicate what they're telling us to constituents and stakeholders and people that we interact with all the time, versus I think their presentation to the hunters, the general public, I think is spot on. I just would encourage them maybe to give us like talking points or some more like information. Pamphlets don't seem to work because that just seems like propaganda to people, but more information that we could have, that we could easier for us to relate it. It's the far hardest part I've found is trying to take all that information that they gave me and, like I said earlier, convey it to somebody in a very short time.
I was also thinking just finding a way to have more participants at their workshop. They're putting a lot of time, energy, and effort into flying across the country, showing up, and we have not had large numbers at our workshops, but thinking about existing events, places where the target audience is already meeting. And so meeting folks where they're at in whatever space that looks like, just so you can get that message out more broadly.
Yeah, I'd like to agree with Anna about that. It seemed like our group, I went to the professional or the agency workshop, and it was I know we were probably limited with the space at Patuxent, but I wish more of my coworkers had been there, had the opportunity to go. But like Anna said, maybe try to work it into already planned meetings or already planned events where there'll be more people there, so they can get more bang for their buck and get that word out.
Anything else that comes to mind that would be better if it were different? Anything just felt in any interaction or the way something was messaged, the way it was said or communicated, obviously there's some gaps, some tools you want that you don't have quite yet, but anything that just felt off at all, or you would wish were different? Well, if it comes to mind, don't feel free to
I had
go
a
ahead.
last.
Go ahead, Stacey. Jump
I was
in.
going to say, I think it has evolved over the last few years. As I mentioned, I've been to quite a few of these, but I think the where they explain the partnership component, I think we tend to lose people. At first, it almost came across as like a sales pitch the first year, and it was a little bit different last year. But depending who gives that component, whether it's Neil or Chris, it does come across differently. And at the public workshops, it lands a little bit awkwardly. In terms of where they break down the different levels of sponsorship and things like that. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's good, bad, or indifferent. It was just a bit awkward at times.
There was the talking about the partnership itself and how different organizations involved in it was just an odd fit, especially for the public workshop.
Yeah.
Well, if anything else comes to mind on that front, gaps or things that could be better or felt off, please feel free to jump in. So I want to shift now and think about what are the ways that you think the partnership could be of most value to your agency and other agencies in the region. We've come up already with some ideas, specific things, like it'd be great if we had a shorter version of it that Carl talked about, right? Or if we had talking points or train the trainer, like we have some good ideas for potential add-ons to what they're doing. Keep those coming if you have them. But are there particular kinds of things that partnership could do in your region, or for your agency with your hunting and possibly trapping populations that would just be of value to you as an agency, of value to your state or region?
I can share from our perspective. It'd be helpful to start amplifying this. We have 7 other regions across the country. In addition to that, helping with those conversations with the, example, NSSF in terms of the packaging and availability, helping us address those barriers with bringing in those other, sportsmen's groups and whatnot to have those conversations would be helpful.
Anything else that would be helpful? The ways they could assist you beyond giving the workshops?
Manufacturing 22s.
There you go.
Make sure you get that in the notes.
Carl, I think you're trying to talk, but you're on mute.
I was just laughing at what you said. That's absolutely true. I mean, definitely the size. I think NSSF, I think Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation, I think a lot of the other big hunting organizations like Safari Club or the National Deer Association, I think the next step for them is to try to work with those agencies, because a lot of them just are going to draw the line. Like, we're going to face it this year in Maryland, a mandatory ban. We beat it last year. I'm not sure we can do it again this year. But I think that they need to start looking at those organizations and saying, you need to get on board with this. I mean, we all know, lead gas was banned, lead paint was banned. Lead's not a good thing. It can be inert, but it also can be a real problem in the environment. And I think if we would get those other organizations a little bit on board with saying, hey, we understand, let's work towards, a voluntary move to, as somebody else had said, take lead out of the environment. I think that would be great. So I think that part of their outreach should probably be towards some of those organizations and not just, the end users.
Something that might help a lot too would be having those organizations work with government and working on government subsidy programs for the ammunition manufacturers to make these non-toxic ammos cheaper, or like as cheap, if not cheaper than lead ammunition, because I think that could be a big driver in itself. And then another thing that they could do too is like get on like Outdoor Channel and some of the different YouTube channels and things like that if they're into like advertising, and put out like, hey, I'm doing my part, I'm a responsible hunter, like advertising it and making it a good what like painting a good or better picture that I'm hunting with lead-free ammunition and doing my part to be a better conservationist.
Holly, it
Yeah,
looks
this
like
is
you. Sorry, Holly. It looks like you came off mute. We got three people. We got Ron, Tris, and Holly. Holly, you want to go first?
Sure. I just wanted to follow up on what Carl and Alan both said. Along those same lines, I know many years ago in the NWTF magazines, we used to see things about TSS and how effective it was. You guys that turkey hunt know that, you know, if you want to kill a turkey deader than dead at 40 yards, TSS will do it for you. So that product sold itself. We didn't have to convert people to go to non-toxic. It would be nice to see the same thing go through with, you know, the deer organizations, other groups do articles on non-toxic shot, do tests of different rounds and different calibers to show people, oh yeah, this worked the best out of my gun. Different scenarios, push it as an environmental, a conservationist motive, and give people confidence that, you know, oh, if I try this round, it may perform similarly. I hate to see folks jump into this and buy something, get super disappointed, and then write off all the non-toxic stuff because one thing that they bought didn't work well for them. So I think a lot of those partnerships, folks going together, aside from state agencies or federal agencies trying to push it on folks, let them decide it's the right thing for them to do and something that can outperform what they have, they'll willingly make that choice.
Thanks, Holly. Ron?
Yeah, I was thinking, you know, we're really trying to reach a really broad audience, from the new hunter, the young hunter, the adult onset hunter, trapper. And I think that, you know, we live in a place where this industry is so many people are following influencers. You know, they're on TikTok, they're social media, all the outdoor shows and stuff like that. So having influencers, I also don't know if they're already working with folks that are, but you know, Steve Ranella, you know, Meat Eater, out there talking about his choices and why he shoots, you know, non-light ammo and whatnot, where that field to table presentation, he's got a huge following, and you know, folks like that. It starts to change the narrative, and you know, they're seeing it and they're not feeling like it's a change either. They're just seeing it as an option. Oh, I hadn't even thought of that. Because you kind of create that new normal for folks.
Thanks, Ron. Chris?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Social media, Steve Ranella, Cam Haynes, Shockey, Rogan. Get them in there. I'm sure they would jump on board, you know, readily.
Thanks, Chris. I want to ask, are there particular challenges that are hard for you to navigate? For you, when I say you, like your agency, to navigate, that are just tricky because of the constraints of your agency or any other factors that you think, oh, the partnership could play that role. They could help move this forward in a way that we just can't do because of local issues or constraints of the agency, whatever it is.
Brokering more incentives, ways to get non-light ammo in people's hands.
Incentives, yeah.
Whether it's grants or you know, just thinking like everybody that buys a trapping license in Maine, here's a box of, you know, 50 22 rounds. That's going to get them started, and they're going to see that right out of the gate, you know, the performance, and now you potentially have just converted somebody that's just getting into the sport.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's limitations on what state folks can do as far as, you know, we're not in the business of just handing out ammo or samples or that kind of stuff. So maybe brokering some of those deals or incentives to help us.
Other ideas that you can't do, maybe the partnership could do to help.
How about a canned marketing presentation that you could use at the state level to encourage people to start to switch over? I mean, a lot of the agencies don't really have a true marketing department that could put together a advertising campaign, whether it's in their regular hunting magazine or in sporting goods stores or on TV shows or whatever, but a marketing campaign to try to start the conversation and expose people to non-lead alternatives might be a great tool for all the different states.
I was going to say maybe they could work with some researchers or universities to update some of the science. I think someone on here mentioned the presentations, being a little dated, but seeing if there's some universities or grants out there with NGOs that are willing to put some money behind some research to update some of that science.
Any other thoughts? Ways that the partnership could jump in ways that you just can't. All right. So in any work that you've done, any previous efforts that you've been involved in to encourage hunters to consider switching, what messages or what efforts have been most successful and which have been least successful outside of what the partnership's doing, right? Anything else that you've been involved in or ways you've tried to apply what you've heard from the partnership, but in your own. So you have Anna, you've talked about the incentives. You got 9 people out of your target 10. So you have some experience in direct incentive programs. Curious to hear about that and anybody else's experience in direct efforts and messaging around lead-free ammunition with the hunting community. What's worked, what hasn't worked? Curious to hear your thoughts.
I hate to say this, but the most successful introduction of non-lead was waterfowl, and they forced it down, they forced us to do it. It was a cut and dry. They did it. Somebody else earlier said that they had 200 hunters and they wanted 10. They got 9 people to go lead free. That's 5%. I hate to say this, but I'm not so sure a voluntary program is going to work. Hunters don't seem to want to change. They all like to shoot the same thing and do the same thing all the time. And I think that's the real stumbling block here is that we're going to face eventually, I feel, a forced, as we are in this state, I believe, a mandatory switch to non-lead. And I think that that the voluntary transfer of from lead to non-lead is great, but I don't know of a whole lot of circumstances, especially in the hunting community, where they volunteer and hunters go along with something that's totally voluntary. It seems to me like they wait until it's the regulation and then they follow it, and it's kind of been the history of hunting in the country, I must think.
Okay, so you're concerned about scale and the feasibility of having the voluntary efforts reach the kind of scale that is needed or at least desired. Anna, and I saw you go off mute as well.
Yeah, I think so. Partly we're piloting it during the year. So we have the workshop in the summer and then we have this pilot incentive. And I don't feel like we gave our hunting public enough time to really understand what is the ask of them? How does the rebate program work? So really, it's in my mind going to take time, and just those continued touch points, whether it's workshops, whether it's existing meetings. I really like having incentive programs, whether they're monetary or maybe they are, handing out ammunition, some way to have people try something new. But for us, it's just been a struggle to reach those hunters. We use email, we use social media, we work with the state, we have just signage up in all our hunt lots. But trying to figure out like how do they get their information. So I think Chris Pancella's point about having something in the digest, we're working with the state to have a blurb for the following year, but and then the points that were made about just making it part of hunting culture, like through thought leaders and others, I think that would really help the message, and then we could be more targeted locally with what we're doing. And I think some of the science that the partnership brought up in their presentation shows that the voluntary can get more compliance than the regulatory. So that would be my hope. It's just the timing is probably going to be slower than if you just put the ban in, folks have to comply versus having a 5-year out sort of outlook on it.
I'm curious, Anna, do you have any sense, and if you don't, that's totally fine. Do you have any sense of like those 9 people? Are they that much more connected with communication channels or with individual relationships, or is there some any idea like what the factor is that where you got that small but you made an impact?
Yeah, I think it's at least a few that came to the workshop and that saw the message and really understood what the program was about, or they may have already been, we do a lot with Ducks Unlimited, NWTF for backcountry hunters and anglers. So if they kind of came here for a meeting, I could reach them in person. But that is something that just trying to think about being able to really have in-person engagement, I find works way better than me just sending this mass distribution email and hoping that someone signs up for the incentive.
Anything else you found that works well or not well? Stacy, did you come off?
Yeah, I would say something that doesn't work well is when the first time our hunting public is hearing about it is through our regulatory process. So we have a really regimented schedule and process, with the hunt fish rule, and our hunt plans are released. And oftentimes it's like the first time people are seeing that or hearing about it. And I think the rumor mill kicks in and can spin out of control. It's also like, a lot of times those plans are sometimes over 200 pages, and it's just a lot for anybody, myself included, even though I do have to read and edit every single one of them. It can be a lot for folks to digest and not feel like they have that person to person, back and forth conversation where it just may not, make sense, or they may have questions. Doesn't create space for that dialogue. I know in the past, pre-COVID, we used to have public meetings. I know during COVID, we tried to do some online, didn't work as well. And most of the time, again, folks aren't necessarily reading the documents. They're showing up kind of, based on rumors and other things. I would say what has worked and how we have successfully sort of communicated this to folks who aren't, able to attend a workshop or as through those the small epoxy pucks where it shows the bullet fragmentation. We've taken up building our own, and we've made a whole bunch of them for our region, and I've committed to give one to each refuge and every law enforcement officer. Still a lot of them in the works to make them, but I hear every month another report from either a refuge manager or one of our biologists that like, hey, that puck was so helpful. It just created that visual experience where we could have a conversation, and it just really made sense to people. And we've had a lot of success with those, but they are they are time consuming to make, although yeah, have really upped my craft game. So
Excellent. The show is more powerful than tell theme comes back from the very beginning. Absolutely. Any other thoughts from past experience anyone has? All right, so let's take the partnership off the table for a moment. We've already talked about ways they might be able to be helpful. Outside of what you necessarily think the partnership could do, what other factors do you think would enable your agencies to be more effective in working on these issues? Like, what gaps are there? I mean, is it expertise? Is it capacity? Is it collaboration with other organizations, entities, something else? Like, what's missing from your, apart from what the partnership does or could do, like, what's missing from your recipe to move these things forward?
I would think the bottom line, would be for everybody is, I keep beating a dead horse, but is supply.
Why?
We can, someone earlier had mentioned, hunters are conservationists. We can, I don't want to use the word convince them, but show them this is a positive thing. But if there is no way for them to get it readily, it's not going anywhere. And mandatory, making it mandatory, that's not going to do any good because you can't buy it now, or you can't get a good supply now. What's going to happen then? So I think, and that's outside of all of us. And we've mentioned, or I should say, it's going to take all of us, including all that was mentioned about the hunting community and the social media and all those groups. You know, here is a problem, we need to solve it. You know, hopefully the demand would come after there is a supply, or at least a better supply.
Thanks, Steve. Bob?
Yeah, I 100% agree. For manufacturers to see this as a priority, and people that go to the store looking for a Remington core locks, a very general, widely popular and available, option for folks, taking this from being a novelty or a specialty product to making it more mainstream and working hard to show that they're part of this partnership, that they're part of the forward motion, moving forward for the right reasons, because that's, they by and large control so much of this narrative, and they're held hostage to what is available, and it's easy to get some of that buy-in. You talked about out of the 220 or so on the refuge, and you've got 9 folks, but the retention of those, are they going to continue and stay in that trajectory? Are they going to influence some of their friends and peers, or are they going to struggle and not find, maybe they switch to a different caliber, and next thing you know, you've lost some of the gain. So I think that's the industry leaders, some of the major players, waving the flag widely that this is the right thing to do to consider using these products, and then looking at the price point, because everything is going to be, I was in production for years. It's all price point based on consumption. Until we break that, through that barrier, I feel like we've got some heavy resistance.
Thanks, Ron. And I'm glad your phone battery's hanging there.
Yeah,
go ahead, Chris. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah. I mean, I think I agree with all that. It would really take the head of some of these state agencies and these federal agencies to get to. I mean, we look at it the other day when Trump was talking with the artificial intelligence guys, big wigs, to get to that level, to talk to the manufacturers, to make it more affordable, because eventually, the ban will happen, right? I mean, it's just going to. So let's, it would be great to get there, and with education, but I don't think you're going to get there totally with education. So if you could get to these manufacturers, I don't know how you do that. You're going to have to go to the top of our agencies to go to Secretary of the Interior to get to someone who's got pull with those big companies to make it more available and to make it cheaper.
Okay, so the
The other thing
industry
that-
buy-in is a clear industry buy-in is clear. Go ahead, Carl.
The other thing for the industry is enforcement when it gets to that stage. But how do you tell the difference between a copper solid and a copper tipped? I don't know of any really good way. I mean, the lead and steel was very different with waterfowl with magnets, but I'm not so sure that works. I know it doesn't work, and there's really no way to identify once it's out of a box a copper tip from a copper core.
So we have technical challenges there, and we have industry investment being a major piece. Anything closer to home without the power, the magic wand to get industry to do those things in the short term. If you had a magic wand locally within your agency, like what would you want? What would you need in-house or in partnerships or in support, whether it was had to do with partnership or not? Anything else that would help you and your team and other people in your agency do this more effectively, reach people more, get more hunters to consider lead-free?
I'm also do education stuff, and we've developed educational trunks for different species of animals and loan them out to schools, 4-H camps, whatever, whoever wants to, but just a teaching trunk would be really cool, with some of those little cool blocks that Anna had, maybe a video, pamphlets, I don't know, just something like, boom, right there it is. Anybody could use it. Any hunter, conservationist, anybody who cared enough to want to, do it to with Boy Scouts or, a club meeting, at the, Allegheny Garrett Sportsmen's Association or whatever, bow hunters, just trappers, just something physical that we could use. Anybody could pick it up and use and talk about it. Just something simple. Like Carl said, something short, sweet, but something tangible that they could see. We could talk all day, but it'd be nice to have something to look at.
Thanks, Clarissa. Sounds really closely tied, like you said, to what Carl was saying, and the idea of talking points and any kind of package, whether it's messages or physical packages that you could use in that kind of outreach. Excellent. Any other thoughts on gaps that could be filled or tools you could use? Partnerships that would be helpful locally?
Just connecting the network of existing partners, like you mentioned 4-H camps, state ranges, private ranges. There's a lot of folks that are in our circles that we interact with, and getting more of them to the table and having these conversations, but also in the messaging. We work with 4-H camps in the state of Maine, and it's not that hard of a sell for us to have some messaging to get them to buy in, so that all those entry-level shooters are.
And that was Ron's battery. I think we may have lost Ron for a while. That is a funny note to end on. We are almost out of time. We got a few minutes left in the hour, but thank you all for sticking with us here. Any other final thoughts that have been percolating related to any of the questions we've asked? Rachel's going to rejoin us here in a minute, and we'll wrap up here in a minute. But anything else that is bubbling that you'd like to share?
I guess one thought that I don't know who is the right venue. I know it's not Fish and Wildlife Service, but we certainly got questions about the human health impacts. And, we don't we specifically don't cover it in the workshop, and it's really not our role as wildlife professionals to be talking in that vein, but I feel, and the hunting public or just the public in general who's learning about this, that's where they go. And, that's where I go as a hunter when I'm feeding my family. And so I don't know if there's a place or space for that. And I'm not sure who or what would be there, but that's just something that I've been thinking about as I become more informed in the topic. And the more I talk with folks about it, I can talk about my personal choice, but I'm just wondering if there is that larger voice or role out there. And then I think something that we've been talking about is just that broader education, because I feel like, especially in this region, without Stacy, my refuge wouldn't be where it is in terms of being able to pilot non-lead and have workshops and have that passion and energy. And it seems like it's still sort of person by person motivated instead of like this collective effort.
Thanks, Anna.
I was going to say, I think another thing I'd like to see would be like the effects on like other species of wildlife other than just raptors too, because I don't know, I could see like around my region, a lot of people would be like, just hawks. Like they don't really like, they care, but they don't care that much. But if you're showing effects on like species that they hunt or fish for, things like that, that's where there's going to get like a lot more concern and a lot more like dedicated effort to change things.
Localizing that from the western eagles to your region.
Right.
Anybody else? All right. Well, thank you so much for taking most of 2 hours to talk with me and with each other. This is really, really valuable, really helpful feedback for for our work and what we'll be able to share with the partnership. And so, thank you so much. Enjoy the time with all of you.
Rachel? Thank you. Nice meeting everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, the pressure's off. Recording stopped.
No, I think, thank you for taking the time to speak with us this afternoon. We can let you guys get on with your afternoons. And if you guys have any other thoughts as you're driving home or working, we're happy to hear from you all as well.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, everyone. Much appreciated.
Thank you.